Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. Jacalyn. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. Jacalyn at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello and welcome to our brand new show here at USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. Jacalyn KERBECK. I'm the president, founder, and chief listening officer here at our network. Our show today is Global Adventures, and this is the brainstorm of my dear friend and colleague here at USA Global TV and Radio. Her name is JenettaBarry, and we met through an interview. It seems was so long ago, but it was probably maybe a year ago, I'm not sure. And since then, we are collaborating in many ways, and this project is one of them. Not only is Jenetta here, but we have a special guest backstage for our first episode of Global Adventures. So let's get the show going. Let's welcome JenettaBarry and the Epiphany process. Hi.
Hello, Dr. Jacalyn. Hello,
This is so much fun, isn't it?
Oh, this is such a fun show. Really been looking forward to this one. And of course, it's very close to my heart today because the special guest is extra special to me. And so it's a great honor to be able to introduce Neil, my son, who is going to share his adventures around Africa with us over 5 episodes. So we're really looking forward to it. But really, this Global Adventure show has been created not as a travel show, but as a show where people who've done extraordinarily different things or had an extraordinarily different experience on their travels come and share them. By way of example, we've got somebody that's going to share their Antarctica adventures with us and what that meant to them, and all the videos and photos of that experience. And another show will be about Ethiopia. And I was saying earlier that a lot of people don't realize, in fact, Ethiopia is north to us here in Kenya. I'm in Kenya. Ethiopia is a neighbor, but it's a very ancient land, and it's connected to King Solomon. And the Haile Selassie who ruled Ethiopia, the different Haile Selassies, were all related to King Solomon. And the Coptic Church, the original Coptic Church, started in Ethiopia. It's the most fascinating land to be part of. So by way of example, there's a cross-section of what we're already presenting, and many more are lining up. So we're looking forward to having you come back again and again to listen and to hear all about these really quite warm, interesting, intriguing, and personal adventures of our different guests as they join us.
Thanks, Jenetta. I personally am super excited because I'm here in New Jersey on an island, and you're all the way there in Africa. And what I just found out before the show began is that your son Neil is about 10 days away driving. So we are worlds apart, and yet due to technology and this platform, it's like we're all together. So I'm really excited. I would love for you to just introduce Neil. We'll bring him out and we'll get right into it.
Okie dokie. Well, Neil was born in Johannesburg. He has an amazing mother, but raised in Kenya. Neil had a lifestyle that allowed for a lot of time in open, natural, and wild spaces. To me, I was so passionate about that my kids had that that sense of freedom. And Neil was the one out of my 4 that really embraced this as a young boy. And he and I had this thing of taking my kids away or doing something with each one individually that would create a memory. And a few times Neil and I went out into the bush together, just he and I, and experienced a lot. And a lot of the time he went by himself or with others. And so with family, he managed to travel with us as a family, to travel a lot into the various game reserves in East Africa, and then finished up his schooling in South Africa, where after that he dabbled in the catering space, then into interior decorating, trying to find out what it was he really wanted to do. He even did sales. And anyway, it wasn't until his stepmother suggested he become a nature guide that he realized that that really was both comfortable and a happy space for him. And he's never regretted it. So the ensuing years took him around a variety of East and Southern Africa game reserves, both for work and pleasure. And he worked his way up from being an apprentice who fixed roads, cleaned toilets, made beds, and cooked food, but not in that order. And his best story was when he was an apprentice, he wasn't allowed to go to sleep until the last guest had gone to sleep. And some of them would go all night long, and then he'd have to take guests in a vehicle and drive them around, having had no sleep. So he'd go to the toilet and set his watch and sleep for 10 minutes and then come back to the bar to entertain the guests. So he had a really big training there. And he's grown into being a guide and then a manager for his first 5-star camp at the age of 21. He then did a combination of guiding and managing at a variety of camps in South Africa until he got the opportunity to be general manager of a flagship camp in the middle of the Okavango Delta in Botswana. And I have to tell you, everybody, you're in for such a treat today, because in my opinion, the Okavango Delta is Africa's best kept secret. And if you can get there, it's so relatively unspoiled. And his 9 years in Botswana saw him eventually manage Wilderness Safari's flagship Mombo camp. And after the birth of his first daughter, my granddaughter, Arabella, he took a position in the local town of Maun that saw him responsible for the local and international logistics of getting a number of camps, until he was eventually responsible for the overall CAPEX for this large business. And so he's been responsible for all types of projects, in-country project manager, building of basic tented camps. He also oversaw major refurbishments and rebuilds of premier lodges, really premier. You know, we're talking about like $3,000-4,000 a night per person camps. And his passion for the industry and business also saw him become the director for Wilderness Air in Botswana. And now he resides with his family in a place called Timbavati. I've just been there earlier this year. It's in the Greater Kruger Park. It's almost into Mozambique, and he oversees 4 camps on a private reserve owned by a family. And here he enjoys an incredible nature and bush-based lifestyle with his 2 girls and his very special wife, Ashley. So I would now like to introduce you to Neil Steedman, my son.
Welcome, Neil.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Really nice to be on the show. After that kind of introduction, I don't know if I've got anything else to say.
Your mom did you proud. That was a great introduction. And I feel so honored to be here with the 2 of you today. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's so special.
So, Neil, what I'd like to... Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jenetta.
No, you go ahead.
Okay, I was going to say, for someone like me, okay, I haven't been to Africa. I'm used to staying in 5-star resorts that there are no animals around. And it's a different world. It's a different life. But what your mom just shared is that the camps that you have been affiliated with and are affiliated with are also luxury in some ways. yet you're there in the wild as well. So it sounds like the best of both worlds.
Yeah, very definitely the best of both worlds.
Yes. So tell us more, if you would.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so definitely the best of both worlds. It's these incredibly remote areas where animals just get to live naturally, the way that they were supposed to. And I've had the privilege over the years to work in a variety of camps, at a variety of levels, and getting to show people like yourself that have never actually been into the wilds of Africa, and show them various animals and how they live and the interactions, and at the same time give them an incredible hospitality experience with food and lodging and overall African hospitality. So over the years, it's been quite incredible to be able to watch people experience and absorb something, and what I found is that it actually brings people back to almost a natural state. You don't realize how connected we are to nature until you go back into it and realize how disconnected you are because of living in the cities and in these man-made environments.
I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I also have found, just in having this platform, that people don't realize that animals and all creatures have a right to be here as well, and that they have a reason for being, and together we have to learn how to respect one another.
Yeah, 100%. I almost think we've got it wrong. They have more of a right in many ways, because they bring balance to the ecosystems, and if we're seeing anything more and more is that there's a complete imbalance with the natural world. So I'm very blessed to be able to bring my children up and show them this and teach them this and let them understand the natural order of things. It's been quite amazing to watch my children absorb that.
Yes, absolutely. Jenetta, you've been part of it as well. Jenetta, we cannot hear you.
I've muted myself.
Oh.
There we go. One of the things that really struck me this year, being with Neil and Ashley, is that Ashley has to drive the children to school 1.5 hours to school through the game park, to Hoedspruit, and then 1.5 hours back. So a traffic jam can be that there are a pride of lions on the road. That's their traffic jam. And what a wonderful experience.
Brilliant. Now, a question I have: when there is a traffic jam like this with lions, do they come toward the cars or try to engage with humans, or they just do their thing?
So it's actually quite interesting. I mean, if they were truly wild, they would be very aware and wary of the vehicles. But in an area like this where game drives happen and the animals see the vehicles, they become habituated, and they realize that the vehicle itself poses no threat. It's never been food nor taken food, and so they're completely at ease with the vehicle and all the occupants, as long as you're not bouncing around and shouting and screaming, and you just being as still and natural as possible. They don't mind. So they'll often just sit on the sit on the road, and then there is a true traffic jam, and the children excuse to the children is that there was a hyena or there was lions or whatever on the road. So definitely slightly different to the cities,
Yes. Yeah. Thanks for solving that curiosity for me.
Yeah,
So Neil.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I think your earpiece or something is making a lot of noise. So Neil, we were discussing, we thought we'd show your background a little bit, what happened to you in Kenya. And the very first picture that I would like to show is here. There it is.
Okay, let me bring it up. Wow. What are we
So
looking
Neil,
at?
do you want to discuss that one?
Yeah, so that's an interesting photo, something I haven't seen in a while. That's from the band school in Kenya, where it was on the outskirts of Nairobi, between well, actually right next to the Nairobi game park. So we used to have warthogs and other smaller animals come across like that when we were playing rugby and hockey and that sort of stuff. And I think it kind of depicts the upbringing that you were alluding to earlier. Where it was in Kenya, it was a lot more free. Created a natural way of thinking, or nature-based thinking. And so this, I think this kind of depicts it quite nicely, and is very, very large part of why I would have gone into what I do. Is this, and just to take it a step further, I recall our house in Nairobi. To drive to school, we'd have to go past the very well-known giraffe manor, which was about a kilometer up the road from us. And we would often have to wait for the giraffes to cross the road from the forest in the morning into the giraffe manor, where they would go and interact with the various guests during the day. And occasionally one would make a bolt for it down the road, and you'd see a bunch of guys running after this giraffe down the road. So it was all part of that free nature-based lifestyle.
And thanks for sharing that. I imagine that if that were the case here, where I am, if that kind of animal showed up on the field where children were playing, there would be chaos. People would be screaming and running. So to your point, it is nice to have that kind of exposure at a young age, because then you learn respect as opposed to fear, I would imagine.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So much fear is the unknown. Rather, like when you actually grow up with it, you realize it's not as dangerous as everyone makes it out to be. And it's quite an interesting point, because I feel a lot safer walking through the bush this side than I do walking in any city anywhere, because you can actually read animals, and you can see, for the most part, what they want to do, or if they're agitated or if they're relaxed. Whereas walking through the city, you can't actually predict what's going to happen. There's just so much going on in different facets. So yeah, I definitely think that my children are in the same boat as me, because it's something we've got used to and grown up with.
In fact, the next picture to share is very close to where I'm living now. We overlook Lake Naivasha, and Neil used to go regularly camping with. We went camping. You went with the school as well, and the tents. We pitch up tents with those hippos around. They only come out usually at night. They're very rarely out in the daytime, but they are around whilst you're camping. And I think that was one of your most meaningful happenings, wasn't it, when you were camping in Naivasha? Would I be right in saying that?
Yeah, I think you're right with that. We used to go camping there quite a lot, and canoeing on the lake, and there were still hippos and crocs around. More hippos than crocs, to be honest. But we'd occasionally take a swim in the lake, and I do recall one school trip where a hippo surfaced probably about 20 meters away from where we were, and had us all scuttling right out of the water very quickly. It was just that kind of happening.
Okay. Note, that's the first time Mama Bear has heard about that one. Oh my word. Okay, well, pass. Let's go on to the next one. This one is very close to your heart, as you and I know. And I'm having an interesting time here finding it. There we go. Here it comes. And There it is. And so, Neil, do you, I've got something in the way, haven't I? There we go. Do you want to share this one?
Okay, so I see 5 different photos there. And basically that's, yeah, so sorry, a little bit smaller, my small screen here, but it looks like Lake Turkana, and you know, a very Turkanan tribe, which yes, is actually quite a big part. It was one of the first real trips I did by myself. I was 15 years old, and got the opportunity to head out on a overland truck, which is a big 4x4 Bedford truck that has seats in the back of it, and you know, you travel across the country in this, going to the various game reserves and sites. And so it's quite a big one for me, because I, you know, as I said, I was 15 years old, and really getting away from the house by myself, obviously with a bunch of other tourists on that. But this was a long trip. I think it was a week in total, maybe a bit longer. And this one went all the way through to Lake Turkana, which is in the northern section of Kenya. And it's this lake that's situated in the middle of this volcanic desert. And you know, just from the one town to where that was, it took 2 days in this truck, going through this arid, almost inhospitable environment. And it's this incredible thing when you go over, like we went over this rise, and there's all these kind of black volcanic rocks around the place, and then in the distance all you see is this jade blue sea, and it just stretches as far as you can see, and it's an incredible sight after being in such a dry area. And I think the one thing that made me realize how inhospitable this place was on the way to this lake, we stopped under a tree for lunch. It was the only tree in the area, and we were busy unpacking, and suddenly on the horizon we saw people. Quite, you know, first a small amount, and then suddenly a whole load, and between 100 to 200 people were suddenly on the horizon. And as they came closer, you could see that they were actually armed. You know, some had you know, various types of weaponry, and all semi-automatic guns. And it obviously, like, now you realize, wow, we really are in the middle of nowhere, and these guys are coming forward. And our driver said, no, don't worry, I'll go chat to him. And off he went, and he came back, with 2 20-liter drums that were empty. And the guys all they were looking for was water, and they know that these trucks they heard it coming and then came through. And in that area, it's very well known that there's a lot of cattle raiding that happens between the tribes. And this cattle raiding, they'd been raided the night before, this tribe, so they were on the warpath looking for their cattle and whoever had actually stolen them. And it was just this surreal kind of experience in the middle of nowhere, and kind of brought to life exactly where we were.
I just want to make sure I understood what you said. So you were in the middle of nowhere, and you were under a tree, and you saw a group of men, and they happened to be armed, and they were actually searching for water.
Yeah, so they were specifically looking for water, because there is no water in the area. It's arid. So they had heard us coming through, and they knew that the truck that we were in carried a lot of reserve. So they just wanted some of that. But their main purpose was that they were actually searching for their cattle that had been stolen by a neighbor the night before. They got their water, and they swiftly moved on, and everyone's happy. But it's an experience.
Yeah. You know, just to give you a bit of overview, Dr. JACALYN, that area is very close to Somalia and Ethiopia. And Somalia, there are a lot of bandits that come in, armed bandits, and raid these tribesmen and take their cattle. And of course, their cattle is their wealth. So they're equally as armed on the rebound to get their cattle back. but they came peacefully to the truck. They weren't menacing. They were just saying, please, can we get some water? And I know for a fact that the truck actually did bring extra water for them, knowing that it would more than likely happen. So that gives you an idea.
Thanks for clarifying that. It does. And something that Neil said, I think is really interesting, it's opening my eyes, is that we have greater fear for what humans might do to us as opposed to the animals. It's really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's that kind of proves the point, doesn't it? That you're out in the wilds, and humans are always the unknown with this kind of stuff. But that's throughout the world, and not just where we were. But I must admit, having traveled like that and extensively through the country and through southern and East Africa, I always feel safe. There's not a point in time where I feel unsafe. Wherever you go, everyone welcomes the tourism and welcomes people, because they bring much needed currency into the country. And throughout Africa, you find that hospitality comes naturally. People want to show you where they are and what they do and where they live, and make a living out of doing that as well. So I know it's been very few and far between where I've actually felt properly unsafe. It's not something that is common at all.
Thank you. I know I feel that I've been under the wrong impression. So I really appreciate you clarifying that for me.
So Neil, to go through to where you went from Kenya, shall we move through to Botswana now?
Yeah, I think maybe just rather to just talk a little bit on, because from Kenya, I went and I studied, and I first moved into the Kruger National Park, or not the national park, but the Greater Kruger Park, and I did my internship there, and I learned a lot about nature, and immersed myself fully for the first time in it all. So that was great fun, and I had a bunch of experiences with wildlife that way. And then I moved into the Madikwe Game Reserve after that, and spent 8 years in that area, and also a true amount of experiences within that. So there are a couple of stories that we can go into, if you'd like, just out of interest, just to understand what it's like, and the kind of things that you do get exposed to when working in these wild places.
Yes, please.
Okay, perfect. I think the one of the most interesting ones, in fact, a lot of revolve around what is known as the wild dog. The name wild dog gives negative connotations to what is actually quite an amazing predator. And it's a real pack predator, and it's a very successful hunter, and they work very closely together to get their food. And one of the projects that we undertook when I first started in the Kruger area was to get a pack of 8 wild dogs, put them into an enclosure, and then release them into the wild where we were, so that you could increase the numbers in the area, and also for genetic diversity. So we make sure that we're getting different types of genes in the area for what is a really endangered predator. So one of my jobs was to go and clean the wild dog enclosure in the reserve I was at, and I would daily go and do this. This was just clean out the water was primarily it, and then bring some food. And the one day I was in there, and I cleaned everything out, and I knew I had a lot to do, and without thinking, I jogged through the wild dog enclosure. And my manager, who was in the car, he shouted, "Hey, what are you doing? Stop!" And I stopped, and I turned around, and there behind me were these 3 wild dogs. So I realized that I'd quite quickly gone from cleaning and doing everything to being potential prey, because only prey runs in the bush. So that was quite an interesting experience for me, and certainly taught me to make sure I understand my surroundings at all times when I'm in the wild. Yeah.
Great story. Thank you.
Yeah, and then I think, it's certainly, my mum will attest to this. When I was in Madikwe Game Reserve, I worked at a lodge there that was an enclosed lodge, so it had a fence, an electric fence all the way around it. And this fence was, meant to keep all staff and guests safe within the area. Some camps are fenced and some aren't. So this particular one was, so you just carry on as normal, as you would anywhere, feeling safe. And I was actually on the phone and I was talking to my mum, and I was walking down this fence line, and suddenly this kudu ran into the fence and smashed into the fence right next to me. And I obviously it was this blur of like, what is it that's going on here? And this kudu kind of turned around, ran, and then suddenly ran back into the fence again. And suddenly these dogs, these wild dogs, painted wolves, came out, and they actually took this animal down next to me. And so I was talking on the phone. I was like, okay, I'm going to have to call you back, Mum. And there I was standing not even 5 meters away from this whole spectacle happening. It was also one of those amazingly surreal experiences that just happens from a prolonged period of time spent in the bush.
In fact, I'd like to add there, they're known as the painted wolves as well, either wild dogs or painted wolves. And they're endangered, and to see them is quite a sight. To see a wild dog, it's like, wow, we've seen a wild dog. But to see a wild dog wild dogs bring down a kudu is quite a thing. And you weren't able to capture it, were you? You didn't get it on video, did you, Neil?
I think Neil's frozen.
He's
there he
frozen.
There he is.
Welcome to the internet in the bush. No, unfortunately, I wasn't I wasn't able to capture it, but I don't know if I would have wanted to. It was just one of those incredible experiences, watching nature at its rawest, so close but in safety. And as you attested to, these wild dogs are incredibly endangered, and yet they're completely misunderstood. And they're fantastic predators. And their social interactions with each other are some of the most amazing that you get to see. And you'd find that one female has, up to 20 puppies, and that's a lot for a female, but it's been recorded before. And they all work together to bring up the youngsters as an entire pack. And it's incredible watching this and the dynamics and the way in which they can sustain really high speeds, 50 to 60 kilometers an hour for up to 7 kilometers. They can run and chase down their prey. So it was incredible being a part of these. And I have a lot of stories with these animals in particular because I do enjoy them so much. But it's, being able to be a part of the conservation of such a critically endangered predator has been an absolute privilege.
Thanks for sharing that. It's amazing. A couple of nights ago, I was actually watching a special with my mother about the painted dogs, and we were just incredulous about they were actually, I think there were 2 of them against another large animal, and they ended up winning. But it was quite a story. We do have a comment from the lovely Diane Floyd-Bame. Hello, Diane. She writes, a great show. It is wonderful for us to learn about life in other parts of the world. And I know Diane has sent me some amazing pictures from her own travels on safari. So thanks, Diane. Neil, back over to you.
Yeah.
Okay, so Neil, I'm going to take us over to Botswana in our last leg of the show. Would you like to do that?
Yeah, perfect. Let's chat about Botswana. And I was again incredibly privileged to be given the opportunity to go and firstly go be a general manager of a camp in the middle of the Okavango Delta. And for those who don't know what the Okavango Delta is, it's this incredible body of water that comes down from a country called Angola, and there's some mountains there that capture a lot of the rainfall, and then it comes down and hits Botswana, which is an incredibly flat country, and then it creates what is actually known as an alluvial fan. And because it's so flat, it takes a very long time for this water to spread out over what is essentially desert, and it brings life to this area. And all these massive trees and palm trees have sprung up with these big anthill / termite mounds that actually create islands through all of these waterways. So it's an actual oasis for wildlife, and to get to go in there just to visit is a privilege. And I got to live there for what was eventually 9 years. And so just to get there, you can't really drive. It's really difficult because of all this water that is around the place. You will often get bogged down, or just be unable to get through the water because it's too deep. So you either take things in by 4x4 7-ton trucks, which depending on the area can take 2 to 3 days to do that, or you fly in by plane onto these airstrips which have been built at the various camps, and then get to go to these incredible lodges that have been built in the middle of nowhere. And so my first appointment was on this quite a small island in the Delta, and this island had it was a 10-room camp, and it was quite a rustic camp, but it had incredible channels that went in front and behind the island. And so the primary thing was to go on these long boat excursions and go well into the Delta, and lots of hippos and crocodiles and amazing medley of these colorful birds that were just all over the place, and then occasionally spotting specific water type antelopes, and then being able to fish in some of these areas for the tiger fish, which is an incredible fighting fish. It's if you like fishing, it's quite a thing to do. So all of these all of these experiences really talk to what the Okavango Delta is about. But I think the best one is actually going by what is a traditional dugout canoe, which in Botswana they call a mokoro. And there you sit in there, and a person will stand on the back, and they will push you through the waterways with a big stick they call an ngashi. And this you'll go through, and it's so quiet. You're sitting in this dugout canoe, and you're being pushed through these waterways, and there's just no sound other than the water lapping on the side of the mokoro, and the gentleman behind you just pointing out the various tiny frogs and flowers and the traditional medicinal uses for these things. And it's incredible. I got to interact with people that had actually grown up in the Okavango Delta, living a subsistence remote lifestyle within the area with their families. So it's this untouched area of the world, which it'll forever be a highlight, a 9-year highlight in my life.
I'm just trying to envision you there, Neil. It sounds like such an incredible experience. And your mom and I do a show together. Actually, we did it this morning about the art of creating mental health wealth. And I would imagine when you're in nature and you have these experiences, that it must be when you feel safe, obviously. And it sounds like you feel safe pretty often, but it must be just so heartwarming and really good for your psyche and morale. Can you share more about that with us?
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite interesting. We have a lot of people, come through, and mostly, high-profile people that obviously live within the business world and have a lot of stress as a result of that. And having done, long safaris with individuals that come through, you can see the first day there's all of the stress, as each day carries on, you see it kind of wash away, and people start to have bigger smiles and laugh more and become a lot more relaxed by nature. And yes, I think, part of that is as a result of actually being away from, stressful work. But there's a massive part of it about immersing yourself in the natural world. And people will say to me often, "Oh, I've got to come back. I can't. I'm booking my next trip. I want to be there." And we say that there is a bug that has bitten. It's an Africa bug, and it's time and time again you see it. And it's not so much a bug. I think it's getting back to our roots as humans, and feeling at ease in nature. And I know certainly that's why I picked this as a lifestyle, and I choose it for my children. And I can feel that when I go through to the cities for prolonged periods of time, I'm yearning to go back. And it's purely to feel that that sense of being at one with everything around the place.
I wish I could get into that type of nature. I know for myself, just looking out the window, we've got beautiful birds and water creatures, but to see the kind of wildlife and animals that you're exposed to every day must be such a blessing.
It is a blessing, and it's for me there are so many experiences that I've been absolutely privileged to have as a result of doing this, and I've given to my children as much as possible. But even to the point where when I proposed to my wife Ashley, I did it in a hot air balloon over the Okavango Delta, and this for me it was this. Okay, well, we're in nature, we want to do it, and it was this incredible experience of doing it, doing the surprise hot air balloon over the Delta in this pristine wilderness area. And it's those kind of things that really have made a life out here quite incredible.
What is also interesting is the fact that Jenetta, it's multi-generational with your family all being able to experience these opportunities together.
Yeah, absolutely. And watching my grandchildren get into it as well now, it's very heartwarming because one just doesn't know how much longer that lifestyle is around for, and it's very heartening to know that they've experienced it as well. I mean, even in my time from when I was a child in Kenya, and the freedom we had when I was a child was far more than Neil had when he was a child in Kenya. So the populations are expanding, and the land is getting less and less. So it's really precious to be able to still get to these places. I've been battling a little bit with sharing screens here, but Neil, we're coming to the end of this part of things. I thought I'd share you and I going in the game drive vehicle, the video, if I can get it through, the video in the game drive vehicle where we're driving through the Okavango, the flooded Okavango Delta in a vehicle. So if I can make that happen, I certainly would like to. Are you happy with that, Neil?
Absolutely, yeah, 100% happy with that.
Okay, let's see what we can do. Okay, so I'm going to share. I don't know why I'm battling so much today. There it is.
So I mean, I think if to talk to what is happening there, that is one of the game drive vehicles that you typically use when you go through the Okavango Delta, and you can see it's got a snorkel on the side, and you're going through crossings that where there's this deep, often deep water, but this is the kind of standard crossing that you would get there, where you have to drive, and water will come in and around your feet, often over the bonnet of the car, and you've got to have nerves of steel as a driver of these vehicles to make sure you're hitting the right line. But everyone knows what that is like out there, so it's not much of an issue. But you really, these game drive vehicles become amphibious. You know, they go through all of this water all the time, and it's quite an experience. In when the full flood has come down from Angola, and everywhere you can see is water. These game drives often spend 60 to 70% of their time driving through water, looking at animals on the various islands that have been created by these termite mounds, and so it's a very different place to go and do a game drive in comparison to, say, even where I am now, where the game drives are incredible and there's incredible density of animals, but there you've just got all this water and a great density and variety of animals, and it's a true adventure, something that really takes you out of your comfort zone of where you live and into the wilds of Africa.
That video was amazing. So when you say drive, what is the vehicle? It's a boat?
No, it's a four-wheel drive vehicle. That's a very well-known Toyota Land Cruiser, and you know you drive through these. You just drive through the water like that. They've been specially modified to allow for this to happen, so that water doesn't get into select places. But saying that, you know, having run operations for a very large safari company there, the kind of repairs and maintenance costs that go into just looking after the vehicles so that they run, you know, you're constantly changing oils and grease and clearing out filters and making sure that everything is turning and not got water in. So that is constant, but as long as you keep that up, those vehicles do exceptionally well through that. And occasionally here and there, one may get stuck, but there are other vehicles all in range with a two-way radio, and the radio for assistance, and another vehicle will come along, you put a tow rope on, and you pull it out, and there's this real sense of adventure that comes with being on a safari like that. And for Botswana particularly, it's because it is so remote and so many remote logistics, and just running a camp like that one that vehicle was at, you know, that's got a staff of 120 people living on site on an island in the remote areas of Botswana, and they live there for 3 months at a time, and then take a month off. And so you've got these kind of communities at the camps that look after the vehicles, and all these chefs that cook the food and create this incredible experience. So it takes a lot to operate something like that, and that's why in Botswana in particular, it's actually quite an expensive destination. But at the end of the day, you're going to a place that you know you're going to be looked after, with a crew that is really committed to doing so.
I mean, even for me,
that you shared today.
Even for me, that experience of going in the vehicle, you don't get that in Kenya. It's an exclusively Okavango feeling to it. I mean, we got to a point where we saw a baby croc, and Neil said, "There's a baby croc. Hello, baby croc," and the video came to an end. But it really is. You can't get I haven't found an experience like the Okavango Delta anywhere else. And I know, Neil, as we end off, you at the beginning of COVID and a group of friends went right up to the top of the Delta and canoed back down to Maun over, how many days was it?
Basically, it was a group of 8 of us in 2 boats with motors on the back, and we started at the top of the Okavango Delta, and we boated all the way down to the bottom of the Okavango Delta on what is known as the Trans-Okavango. And we had planned to do it over 5 days, but we were enjoying it so much that I think it ended up taking us 8 days. And what we did is we took absolutely everything with us on these boats. And that was all our sleeping bags and tents and food and drink and whatever else, fuel, which is a big one. And we navigated the waters with a friend that knows it very well. And we just camped on islands, these islands along the way, and go for the day, and then sometimes we would stay for 2 nights on an island and then carry on and bomb it down some more. And it was during this whole COVID time, where, like the rest of the world, there was a lockdown and people weren't allowed to go out, and there were face masks and regulations, and we got this opportunity and we took it, and it went from being this really kind of controlled environment to the most uncontrolled experience I've ever had. It was just free, and it was really a sense of being, again, connected with nature. And it is hands down the most incredible trip that I've ever done in my life, and I've done a lot. It was out of this world. You literally cruise along through these waterways with these high papyrus sides, and you come around and there's a hippo in the water, and then he goes off into the papyrus, and then come around and there's 3 elephants standing on an island just grazing, and you go around and there's a big croc that comes off a bank, or when you're camping and you can hear far in the distance lions roaring. It's this incredible experience that I would highly recommend to anyone that has the chance to do it.
And you were even saying that you mentioned that the tribes were relatively still ethnic. They hadn't become too civilized. I mean, I'm not saying they weren't civilized, but they were quite in their zone and happy where they were.
A lot of people in the area, choose to still live a remote lifestyle, and that's sometimes it's choice, sometimes it's circumstance, but either way they do choose that. And so there's, for a lot of the guys in these remote areas, they're still very much connected to nature, which is great. It's not so much in the Okavango itself these days because it's not really done, but certainly on the sides of the Okavango, there's a number of communities that live in nature, and they actually, they own a large tracts of land that these high-end lodges will actually pay a premium to the local communities that operate. And it's this nature-based economies, which is so important with people living like that, so they see true value in the wild areas around there, and that value will then inspire them to conserve the areas rather than exploit them and kill the animals for food and so on, and selling the meat. So as long as people keep coming to these environments and supporting the lodges and doing game drives in these areas, you're actually supporting the local communities that will in turn ensure that these places are conserved and kept as pristine as possible, because we're seeing it throughout Africa. It's not, unfortunately, there's just a lot of people, and a lot of people have to go somewhere, and then the next available space is all these wild spaces. So we work really hard in the industry at large to try and educate people to preserve these areas, and that only comes through people actually earning a living off them.
I'm learning so much, and I'm excited for the rest that you're going to be sharing. You have 4 more shows that you're coming back with for 4 more episodes. I really am looking forward to that, Neil.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's amazing to just be able to talk about it. For me, this is ordinary, everyday life, and so it's easy to talk about, and it's nice to be able to share. And hopefully we can inspire people to come and visit these areas and keep the conservation going like this. So I'm very excited to continue to share all the various things that you can experience out here.
Yeah, I find it fascinating because it's a
Wow.
completely different world than the world I'm familiar with. So I'm very intrigued.
Absolutely. Well, I think there's definitely going to be a number of stories along the way which we'll talk about.
Perfect.
Neil, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me. I really do appreciate it.
Dr. Jacalyn and I are back to back right now. I'm going on into another show, into my Talking Heads show. So we're going to wave goodbye to you, and we'll speak to you in your next episode. Can't wait to have you back.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Neil, before we let you go, I just want to spotlight you one more time. Can you please give your contact information for people who can't read the banner or they're listening on radio? How do people get in touch with you, and who would you like to contact you?
Okay, so yeah, that's a really good thing. So I am on Instagram and actually post regularly on Instagram about the daily activities that my family go through, and that's under the Wild Family Life handle. So it's just the Wild Family Life. And then otherwise, I can be contacted. It's actually my wife. My wife creates these amazing experiences for people, and she has her email addresses Ashley, ASHLEY, at safari-guru.com, and she, all that. Anything that anyone would like to ask, they're welcome to, and just drop a mail on that.
Wonderful. Neil, we have here that your Instagram is the_wild_family_life, but I'm not able to find that. Is that the right one?
That is the right one.
That is okay.
Wild Family Life, 100%. So it should be there. Yeah, instead if it's not.
Okay, I'll keep looking. I'm definitely going to be following you. Thank you again. All right, Jenetta, we need to sign off. So the three of us will just wave goodbye to everyone. Thank you so much for being here. And please do come back and see us next week for the next episode with Neil. And right after this, literally in 3 minutes, Jenetta is coming back with her Talking Heads episode. Bye, everyone.
Okay. See ya. Bye.
Bye.